Welcome to the Hidden Potential Podcast. I'm your host, Omer Hargrove, and today we're going to be talking about building a work environment that inspires your team. Think about this. What makes people want to show up and stay engaged and give their best? Is it the paycheck? Is it the perks? Or is it something deeper? If you've ever been a part of a team that made you feel alive or that made you feel energized or like you were excited to contribute something, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I think it's no coincidence that this past year, my top viewed episode was when to know whether or not to quit your job. I think that is kind of funny, but it's also should be alarming to those of us who are help manage workspaces to know that people are constantly considering whether or not they need to quit or move somewhere else. Today, we're going to be diving into the art of fostering a work environment that doesn't just keep people around, but even inspires them to thrive. Whether you're leading a team of 2, 20, or more, this episode is for you. The big thought for today is a healthy and inspiring work environment doesn't just happen by accident. It's intentionally built upon with vision, trust, and care. And I want you to think about, why does this matter? Because so often we kind of enter into our roles positionally, and everyone has a different story of how they got into this position of leadership or management. But when people feel inspired, they're not just working for you, they're working with you. And that's where the real magic starts to happen. That's where the goals are exceeded, that's where relationships are strengthened, and it's potentially it's where that potential for each individual employee has this ability to be unlocked. So let's just go ahead and jump into some of our content today. So there's going to be 3 core principles that we're going to be talking about when creating a work environment that inspires. And that's going to be trust, purpose, and growth. Let's break them down one by one. So first of all, let's talk about cultivating trust and transparency. They go hand in hand. This is a foundational principle because without trust, you don't have anything. People are inspired when they feel trusted, when they feel respected, and like their voice matters. But the thing is, trust doesn't necessarily happen automatically. It has to be earned and it has to be modeled. It starts with you as the leader modeling that out. Ask yourself this: do your team members know that they can come to you with ideas? Do they know that they can come to you with concerns or even mistakes? Or do they feel like they have to kind of walk around eggshells around you? Because the truth is, an environment without trust feels a lot like this, stand castle that can easily fall down. It may look strong, but once the waves come against it, one conflict, it can fall apart. So, if you could even just imagine these moments of where you yourself have been in situations where you felt like you couldn't trust upper leadership, it makes it such a difficult place to be able to grow, because not only do you not trust them with mistakes or if something bad has happened, but you don't even trust them when you have a good idea. You just keep it to yourself. And even when someone has a good idea, it fosters this negative attitude towards upper leadership, because it's like the conversations kind of go like, oh, have you shared it with this? Oh, they don't listen. It's this idea that there's something that has happened or something that has not been implemented that causes people to feel like they cannot trust upwards. There's been plenty of times for me when I've been a part of different teams where it felt like I was micromanaged. It felt like everyone just no one took responsibility or ownership for their roles, and it felt like there was no trust in that when it came to figuring things out. Felt like you were just all alone. It never felt like upper leadership or even team members had this heart of, if you need me, I'm here. And that when there's no kind of camaraderie like that, when there's no kind of trust, people won't step up. People will just do the tasks at the minimum that they're asked to do so that they can get ready to go home. They just are miserable there. And the first minute that they get an offer for more money or even slightly less money, but a potentially happier place, they're going to leave. And so here's a gut check for you. Do you feel like you're micromanaging your team? Are you giving them are you giving your team a proper space to grow? Does your team really feel like they can trust you? You know, the first step is to lead by example, to be open, to be honest, and to be transparent. Even when we as leaders make mistakes, or if we don't know what's going to happen, for us to be transparent about it. Even like when it comes to fears, maybe there's like a foreseeable future to where everyone kind of knows about something going on, but no one's really voiced it openly. And really being the leader, to call the elephant out in the room. And if you don't have the answers, like, look, I know that you guys are kind of scared about this thing coming up, that there's a lot of talk about it, and I'll be honest with you, I'm trying to figure it out myself, but I want you to know that we can talk about this openly. We can kind of we can plan things out together. We don't have to be afraid of this, but we can face it as a team. And you can really help build a lot more trust by, again, being transparent. So again, remember, trust is built in those small moments, and it is built over time. It is what creates this environment where people aren't afraid to bring their full selves to the table. Now let's talk about giving people purpose. This is a big one. It's the second pillar we're talking about. It's this idea that people want to feel like their work matters. It's not enough to give someone a task list and say, here, get this done just because it needs to get done. If they can't connect their work to a bigger vision, then they're going to feel like they're just running on this hamster wheel. And you got to ask yourself, like, how do you give people purpose? And it starts with clarity. It starts with understanding that everyone on your team, from the most senior leader to the newest hire, that they each have a role to contribute to the bigger picture. Think about this. When someone's cleaning the floors at a hospital, you can frame it in two ways. You can say, well, they're just mopping the floors, or you could say they're creating a clean and safe environment where people can heal. It's the same task, but when you wrap it in this more articulate way, it provides this different sense of purpose. Can each person on your team articulate why their role matters? If not, then you should take some time to connect those dots for them. Help to paint this bigger picture and remind them that their work, no matter how big or small, is valuable and it makes a difference. You know, for me, even when I was a volunteer, I really strive to, when I was a volunteer at other churches and other ministries, there's a point where at one church, I literally volunteered at every possible place that had a need. I would look for places that had a need, and I would implant myself to that. And I would search for a way that there was purpose. Like, what is the vision behind this role? And I'm telling you that there's moments, I was all over the place. I was in the children's church, the nursery, the media booth, and the parking lot as a greeter. I was all over the place. And there's times where I mopped things up, cleaned up, throw up, unclogged toilets. But it really was valuable for me, and it made me feel fulfilled when I would look at what is the purpose of this job. Even when I was just like in the parking lot, for church ministry, that's kind of like, it's not like a glorious thing, especially in Texas heat. And so there'd be many times where it's not like this. They were struggling to get volunteers. And so I heard that and I went and volunteered because there was a need. And while I was out there, I just envisioned like what really matters here. And I started kind of connecting the dots for myself. And I thought, well, this is the very first experience that people are going to have of this church. Like, this is the very first impression. I'm going to be the very first person that they talk to or they see. I could be the very first person to smile at them or ask how their day was. This could be very well their first impression of this church or their very first impression of God, of like Christianity. And so it really inspired me to take it seriously. It was one of the most like unexpected, purposeful roles that I volunteered in, but it was only because I searched for the purpose in it. As the leader of your site, you need to be able to help connect the dots for people. When you talk about different roles, don't talk about them in a sloppy way. Don't talk about them as insignificant, but you should bring value to every conversation about, to every role and conversations about these roles. Those conversations are what remind everyone of their why. It can help bring that spark back. And your productivity will skyrocket when people believe in what they're doing. Not because they're forced to work harder, because they're being forced out of fear of losing their job or this or that, but because they are being reminded of their purpose. And purpose inspires passion. And when people know that they're contributing something meaningful, they don't just show up, but they show out when they're there. Now, number 3 is prioritizing growth and well-being. This is the third pillar, and this is where we show people that we care about them as individuals, not just as workers fulfilling a role, but the idea that they're real people that happen to work at our space. So let's start with growth. Are you creating opportunities for people to learn, to stretch, to develop? Are you helping them to grow in their roles where they're at? This could look like skills training, mentorship, or encouraging someone to lead a project outside of their comfort zone, giving them a sense of more responsibility. People get inspired when they know that they're growing. It shouldn't be a person at the same exact spot over the course of 5 to 10 years. When we're learning, we're growing. And because when someone feels like they're stuck or stagnant, that's usually when a person will disengage, and they will stop to care about their job. They'll stop to be interested, and that's when they'll either start looking at other places to work, or they'll just be again like kind of working for the weekend and not really caring about their job and just waiting to go home. And you want it to be a healthy environment, a place that people look forward to going to work at. But with all that being said, growth without well-being doesn't necessarily work. If your team is growing, but they're also feeling burnt out, then something is off. People need to be able to feel seen, that they need to feel cared for. They need to be able to feel appreciated for the work that they're bringing, not just professionally, but personally. Simply things to where simple things matter. Celebrating wins, encouraging breaks, telling them like, hey, you're working too hard. Like you should take a time off. You did really well in this. Now celebrate it. Check in on your people and ask how are they doing really. And as a quick tip, like try to schedule within your calendar to have regular one-on-one conversations with your team. Not to just talk about projects or deadlines, but for you to talk to them, talk about their lives, ask what's working for you right now. Where do you feel stuck? How can I support you? But also ask about like how's your family doing? How are your kids doing? What's new in your life? Have you found any new hobbies? What are you listening to? What movies have you seen? These moments can really build trust, and they remind your team that you see them as people, not just employees. And again, touching on that appreciation a bit, like in being able to be seen as a real person, this is big. And what I've found is that sometimes your best employees, your best workers are often the most, they will seek out that appreciation. They will continue to work hard without appreciation, but they will only do that for so long. And being at several work environments to where not only did I feel appreciated, but there's times where I almost felt like certain people were mad when I accomplished something. And it's a terrible feeling. And it's like it will push those people out. It will push your successful employees out when you don't give healthy appreciation, when you don't show them that they matter, when you don't look at them as real people. And your employees, you don't want them to think, well, I'm just a worker to them. They don't really know me. You want them to feel like they're seen as real people. And this growth and this well-being stuff, it really creates momentum for your people to feel connected. And when people feel supported, when they feel seen, they bring their best selves to the work that they do. So let's end with some 3 takeaways for fostering and inspiring this kind of work environment. Number 1, evaluate your communication. Are you fostering trust? Are you fostering transparency? Or is there room to improve? Truly rate yourself. And if If you have a struggle rating yourselves, if you're giving yourself a 10 out of 10, then maybe you should ask some people on your team for them to do an anonymous survey to rate your communication when it comes to fostering trust and transparency. Number 2, connect tasks to purpose. Take time to remind your team why their work matters. Revisit the vision and bring it back to life. Imagine scaling some time to sit with your employees and ask them what they feel like their purpose is. And to yourself, even before those little meetups, have a moment to where you write down something that brings meaningful purpose to each role, something that would make you excited and help them to connect those dots too. Number 3, prioritize growth and well-being. Make space for your team to grow without burning out. Ask what they need to thrive and then act on it. Being able to go to your team and say, is there anything that we haven't done that you feel like we should have mentioned by now? Is there anything that from our exchanges that you were expecting me to bring up? Start asking from them what they might be expecting from you or what help they would need. Remember, inspiration isn't something that you demand. It's something that you have to cultivate. It starts with trust and it grows through purpose, and it thrives when people feel valued and cared for. So with all that being said, I hope that this encouraged you today. I hope that was meaningful for you, whether you have employees that you're trying to lead or you have volunteers you're trying to lead, or maybe you're just thinking about this for your family. I hope that this episode resonated with you. And if it did, I'd love for you to be able to share it with somebody else. Even leave a rating or review for this podcast. Really help me out and help others be able to see this show in their feed. But until next time, have a great life. Well, there you have it. I hope that this episode was meaningful and edifying for your leadership and your growth within your ministry and organization. Could you do me a favor? Could you leave a rating and review for this podcast? It'd really help me out and help others be able to see this show in their feed. You can also visit homerhargrove.com to be able to learn more, connect, or become one of our supporters. Until next time, have a great life.